After over 3 decades of war and more than 15 peace conferences, the civil war in Somalia still continues. The war has revolved from fighting with spears and rifles to tanks and bombs in the recent years. Despite the presence of nearly 12,000 African Union troops, Somalia's people still suffer insecurity and terrorism. Hundreds have died, and hundreds have been displaced over the years. However, who and what is fueling these wars? Is it the competition between clan-based militant groups, warlords and emerging Islamist movements, or the neighboring governments and foreign powers with different political interests and agendas? Somalia's story is a complex one. The war may not just be about the clan factions. The conflict is traced back to the colonial era, when Somalia territories were divided among Britain, Italy, and France. Britain also rewarded its colony Kenya with some parts of Somalia for being good colonial allies. Ethiopia, though never colonized, was rewarded with parts of Somalia by the British Empire for being good collaborators. Even after Somalia gained independence in 1960, the lost territories created disputes that outlived the colonial rule and continue to influence regional politics to date. Then comes the Soviet Union and the United States. Somalia is strategically located on the Gulf of Aden, which is directly connected to the entrance of the Red Sea. The Gulf of Aden links the Horn of Africa to the Arabian Sea. It forms part of the Suez Canal shipping route between the Mediterranean Sea and the Arabian Sea in the Indian Ocean. It is a vital route for petroleum and other commercial goods, supporting over 21,000 ships annually. Given its significance, the Soviet Union and the United States competed for influence in post-independence Somalia. Each wanted to monitor one of the globally recognized busiest maritime trade routes. Somalia turned upside down when the second president after independence, Abdi Rashid Shamaki, was assassinated in October 1969. Siad Barre, the then commander of the Somali National Army, used the moment as a catalyst to seize power within just 24 hours of the funeral. The Soviet Union allied with Siad Barre, helping him form one of the strongest army forces at the time. Barre went into war with Ethiopia over Ogaden, a territory the British Empire had given out to Ethiopia. After Barre terribly losing the Ogaden battle, the Soviet Union switched sides and collaborated with Ethiopia instead, deeming it a stronger nation and partner. The Soviet Union further escalated the conflict by helping Ethiopia fight against Somalia, pushing Siad Barre to seek help from the United States. What started as a conflict between Somalia and Ethiopia over a lost territory escalated into a power struggle between two powerful forces, the Soviet Union and the United States. The Soviet Union weakened, prompting Somali clan leaders and warlords to take over the battle. The US, however, backed Barre until the end of his regime. It is not clear what terms Barre negotiated with the US. What's on record is American policymakers holding the UN accountable for peacemaking failures and deaths of US troops in Somalia. The United States has also been implicated in failing peace in Somalia. The US and the UN conflict interests affect peace interventions. This superiority complex diverts them from Somalia's social and political reality. For example, in Operation Restore Hope 1993, the US and the UN collaborated with and legitimized local faction leaders instead of disarming them. This empowered and strengthened the warlords and undermined long-term peace efforts. According to the Guardian News, in 2006, the US provided backing for the Ethiopian invasion that ended the operations of the Islamic Courts Union. Foreign Policy in Focus organization says, America used air bases in Djibouti, Kenya and Ethiopia to launch airstrikes and missiles in Mogadishu. Yet these courts had brought stability to Mogadishu by disarming warlords. The intervention was a response to reports that Islamic courts were affiliated to Islamic terror groups Al-Qaeda. As a result of this invasion, Anti-foreign resentment grew among the locals and led to the rise of Al-Shabaab. US commanders dealt with military leaders instead of involving opinion leaders in the community, which undermined local efforts aimed at restoring stability. It is not only the US. Based on their strategic interests, foreign countries have always taken sides in the Somali conflicts. And what does this lead to? Humanitarian crisis, including deaths and displacement, more division, and fights over humanitarian aid. Military groups block aid routes, loot regions that have received aid, and start conflicts to fight over aid. Warlords divert relief supplies to finance warfare, which ends up strengthening these groups. Somalia is a member of both the African Union and the League of Arab States. Arab countries sent and continue to provide relief to Somalia through Islamic charities, and the African Union channels it through the African Union Mission in Somalia, AMISOM. AMISOM was approved by the UN in 2007, following the end of the Islamic Courts Union, which generated tensions within different factions. AMISOM was given 7 tasks, including supporting peace, reconciliation, and dialogue. The peace mission has since been renamed the African Union Transition Mission in Somalia, ATMIS, to facilitate a phased handover of security responsibilities to Somali security forces. The paradox is that, as some members of the League of Arab States provide relief support, others fund particular factions of military groups that destabilize peace in Somalia. For example, Somalia accused the UAE of undermining federal authority and facilitating hostile actions. This followed unauthorized airspace usage and altering visa policies, including restricting regular Somali passports while granting visas to Somaliland passports. This undermines security and defense operation agreements between Somalia and the UAE. African countries too have contributed to the conflict in Somalia. Despite its territorial disputes with Somalia, Ethiopia has been active in peace initiatives. However, when these initiatives do not favor its interests, it does not comply. For example, in 1997, Ethiopia challenged the Cairo peace process by recruiting and persuading 2 main Somali faction leaders to boycott the peace process. Egypt, the host of these peace talks, had a dispute with Ethiopia over the Nile River. Subsequently, Ethiopia was excluded from the peace agreements. To sabotage its enemy Egypt, Ethiopia argued that Somalia cannot achieve sustainable peace if some members of the National Salvation Council were excluded. Ethiopia was referring to itself, thus mobilizing Somali leaders to boycott the signing of the agreement, escalating the conflict further. Most of these interventions do not aim at solving underlying long-term political issues, but rather temporary social solutions or military stability. For instance, in 1992, the US Marines landed in Mogadishu with unofficial mandates like the UN to create a safe environment for humanitarian food distribution. However, the US forces received a separate and different mission upon arrival: to capture and remove Somalia's main warlord leader, General Muhammad Fari Aidid, contrary to the first mission of delivering humanitarian support. This external intervention reflected the interests of those providing assistance, not the country in need of the support. 3 decades of conflicts, hundreds of deaths and millions displaced. But the question remains, has Somalia become a battleground for global and local powers to show their supremacy?